Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start today. No one should be subjected to arbitrary interference and harassment in his or her private or familiar place or residence. Yet, unfortunately, for more than 4 months now, the fundamental principle of universal declaration has denied by the Iranian regime. In the case of Dr. Noorani Tabande, the 91 years old spiritual leader of the Gonabadi Sufis in Iran with millions of peaceful followers, who has been placed under house arrest since February 19th of this year. At this time, when Dervishes found out when his leader is in the arrest, they protest against illegal arrest of Dr. Tabande by plainclothes security forces sent to these clandestine sections within the regime through a peaceful gathering and forming a human chain in front of his house. They were subject to the brutal attacks. These attacks, which were conducted by plainclothes elements within the regime, resulted in many Sufis being beaten and wounded, with more than 400 of them being arrested, imprisoned, and immediately placed under the most severe torture. As a result of these tortures, at least one of the Sufis detainees, Mr. Zahra Muhammad Rajai, was murdered, at least. And the last week, another Sufi, Mr. Muhammad Salas, was executed. Unfortunately, on the same fateful night, during a completely unfortunate event, a bus which was subsequently named as Crazy Bus ran uncontrollably into the gathered crowd, causing the unfortunate deaths of 3 policemen. Immediately after the incident, during the manipulated and heavily edited video, an interview with Mr. Muhammad Yavar Salas, a Sufi who was arrested several hours before the accident and hospitalized for the wounds he had received during his arrest, was conducted, while Mr. Salas was in semi-unconscious state due to the beatings he had received. In this edited video, we don't hear any question, but only hear responses given by Mr. Salas, who was, as I said, in semi-conscious state on the Iranian national television as a confession of Mr. Salas to the incident with the bus, and then was used as only basis for the issuance of his conviction and subsequent death sentence. Dear ladies and gentlemen, perhaps you won't believe this, but I'm going to tell you the trial of Mr. Salas lasted only 2-3 hours, and during the subsequent third hearing, he was sentenced to death. Mr. Salas was not even allowed to appoint a lawyer for his own defense during the preparation for the trial, and he was allocated a so-called victim's attorney by the court 1 hour prior to the court verdict being filed. Mr. Salas, in the second and third trial of the court, he just rejected the accusations, and his body was almost from 10 different parts was broken, and the court didn't hear that. The only document during the trial in support of issuing a death sentence presented by the prosecution was a video of his interview while he was lying semi-conscious on hospital bed. In fact, Mr. Salas completely rejects the allegation in the second and third session of his court trial, and states that he was severely tortured and he suffered many fractures. Unfortunately, Mrs. Zainab Tari, in the aftermath of the trial, presented the judicial authorities was a request for an appeal and retrial based more than 20 clear judicial violations, which unfortunately was rejected by Iranian judiciary. Mr. Salas was then was executed 2 days before the actual announced date of his execution on 18th of June 2018. Meanwhile, a number of detained Sufis have also been sentenced to lengthy 5 years and 7 years imprisonment and to the inhuman punishment on flogging. In addition to the Sufis who were arrested on the day the Sufis protested in Tehran, who number more than 300, about 400 other Sufis were also arrested in other cities of Iran, bringing the total number of Sufis detainees to over 700. The prison conditions for the detained Sufis, and in particular the Sufi women in the prison of Archak of Varamin, are unfortunately dire and unacceptable. The Sufi prisoner on hunger strike no doubt will soon be transferred to the notorious Evin prison. Dear ladies and gentlemen, through these events you can easily see the steps of the pre-designed plot against a peaceful spiritual Sufis group led by their peaceful, well-respected leader Dr. Noorani Ali Tawande. In conjunction with the widespread oppression of the Sufis in Iran, the 91 years old spiritual leader of the Ghanabadi Sufis, Dr. Noorani Tawande, has been kept under house arrest for over 4 months and has been cut off from having any form of contact with his followers or the Iranian people. In the light of these conditions and his confinement, it is clear that his life is in danger. And now we see clearly with the execution of Mr. Mohammad Yawar Salas it was just unfair and unjust trial. I thank you for the time that you